Hello, guys. First of all, thank you so much for coming to the session. And so, once again, you are all warm welcome by InfosecTrain. And before going to the slide, I promise you our session is to be a more practical method and very interesting. Okay, so we can start the introduction to bug bounty. So, what is bug bounty first? Okay, so I hope you all are very interested to learn a bug bounty. Most of the peoples will start like to come into bug bounty because of cybersecurity. Even the peoples who are working with non-technical background or non-cybersecurity background, probably they are also working in IT, but like to switch the career into cybersecurity or like to do a part-time earnings. So this is the main reason most of the peoples are like to start with the bug bounty programs. Okay, but the sad truth, not all the peoples will get the proper guidance to do a bug bounty. So we can see what is bug bounty. So first, what is bug? Bug is a weakness. What is exploit? Make use of the vulnerability. So that is exploit. For example, bug, that is a vulnerability, and exploit, that is an object which is used to break the vulnerability. For example, there is a thief who planning to get into the house, and he found there is a 40 windows presented in the home. Okay, 40 windows presented in the house, and one window is completely made of glass. There is a no wood, no grill or anything. It is purely built of glass, and glass is easily breakable, so that glass is a vulnerable, that is a vulnerable endpoint. Okay, because once if the thief will break the glass, he can able to get into the house. So that glass is a vulnerability, and he used one stone to break the glass. That stone is an exploit. So bug bounty, for example, nowadays most of the companies, not most of the company, every each and every companies will start doing a cybersecurity from their products and service. If you are working in IT professional, you probably know there is a two sort of IT companies are there. One is service based and product based, and most of the service company, cybersecurity based service company, will do the security auditing and do a testing assessment, and product based company will give the project to make their product more secure, more and more secure. Okay, so that is the business logic behind the application testing, penetration testing, and bug bounty. So yes, if you can't able to place in some company as a security professional, it doesn't mean you can't able to work with a security environment. You can do a freelancing using this bug bounty program. Most of the companies will do open source bug bounty platforms. If you can able to find weakness in their application, in their product or environment or network, you can report that weakness to the particular concerned company, and that company will give you the acknowledgement or reward or a swag, anything. So what is the use of the acknowledgement or reward or swag? So probably reward is very useful for us, but what is the use of acknowledgement? Because if you are a if you are a student, and if you are a working professional who want to switch into a cybersecurity company, those acknowledgement will be a milestone for your career. You can add those acknowledgement from your resume. That will become a more impressive, because even I take more people's interview for the cybersecurity, and what we are majorly focusing on the people's, even he or she may be the fresher, if he participate in cybersecurity programs like bug bounty, CTF, we give more preference to that professional. So that is why bug bounty is important. The first thing, if you want to learn a bug bounty, you not only focus on the money. Okay, so we do a bug bounty, we get a money. Not only like that, you get the acknowledgement. That acknowledgement will take you to the next level. So try to get more acknowledgement. For example, if you get acknowledgement from a very big company, they even provide you the job with your team package. Okay, so that is actually a bug bounty. In technically, if you can able to find or exploit any weakness in any application network, and probably if you report that weakness to the concerned company, that is actually bug bounty. So what is bounty? Bounty is the reward, and bug is the thing what you find in the application. Okay, so now I think probably you all know what is bug bounty, what is bug hunting, to finding vulnerability in the application. Okay, see the difference between penetration testing and bug bounty. So penetration testing actually the security auditing. For example, if there is a service-based company, so penetration testing is the complete security audit. For example, if there is any application, if you want to make a penetration testing, you have to make a complete security audit. So what are all the business logic-based vulnerability? What are all the traditional vulnerability presented in the application? And how about the parameters? How about the endpoint? How about the environment of the application? In which environment the application is hosted on? So that complete testing is a penetration testing. Okay, and there are also many penetration testings are there, like a web application pen testing, mobile application, API, thick client, thin client, SCADA, okay, network, infrastructure, many more penetration testings also there. But this bug bounty, for example, if you are working in a company and if your client will provide you the project for a penetration testing, there will be an application, it is your scope. You have to entirely test that application. But in case of a bug bounty, okay, that will be open source. You can, many company will host their bug bounty programs. And one more thing, if you find any vulnerabilities in normal application and report it them, means not all the company will gives you the reward. Okay, some companies will ask you without our permission how you can test at our application or environment. So you also have to face that. Okay, so how to find what are all the companies will hosting bug bounties? That is the main thing you have to clear. Okay, so most of the companies in their official website, they do organize the security programs. Okay, if they are organizing any security programs, that is your right target. You can start against their application and try to find the bugs, and if you report the bugs, you will get proper acknowledgement to the bug. So that is the point, because not all the application or not all the companies will give you the reward for finding the bugs. Some people will ask you without our permission how you can test our environment. So you also have to face that. But I'll completely tell you where you can do the bug bounties and what are all the platforms you can utilize your skill. You can find bug, you can report bugs and everything. Okay, so bug bounty is publicly hosted. Penetration testing is an individual product. You have to complete the your target entirely, but bug bounty is a unique program, okay, or a public program. Anyone can able to try to find a bug. For example, if the company who hosted bug bounty program and thousands of security professionals will start test against their product to find a vulnerability. So who found the severe vulnerability? Based on the vulnerability ranking, the company will give the acknowledgement, reward, or anything. So that is actually bug hunting. And next, one more thing, major bug bounties will be presented on a web application and mobile application. And maximum 80 percentage of bug bounty will be only based on a web application and rest will be a mobile application. Okay, so because in a network or infrastructure, no company will directly give you the bug bounty. You have to do an internal assessment testing as well. Okay, so before entering into the bug bounty, you should have to be clear with what is your target. Either you want to test for a web application or a mobile application. So then what is the difference between a website and web application? Website is a browser based. See, for example, generally I'm going with this browser. You can tell me this is a website or a web application. See, this is a website or a web application. This is website. It has infos and web page, hosted web page. Okay, so all of you telling web page, web page, web page. So why it is a web page? Yes, it is a web page only. It is not a web application. So if any site will getting input from the user and processing the user input, that is a web application. The static page is a website. See, this is actually a static page. For example, if I click the sports means what happened? It will take me to the sports page. That's all. Okay, it doesn't getting more information from the user and not processing any user input. For example, these are all the fixed static pages. There is a no dynamic content in this page. So for example, if I visit this Anna University and you also visited Anna University, the both result will be same. But here I'm just going with Amazon. How about this Amazon? Is this website or a web application? This is web application. How we can say it is a web application? Because it is getting input from the user and processing all the over the user input. For example, just here I'm searching for, my last search is a MacBook Pro. Okay, so here I'm searching for a MacBook Pro and I get the result of related to my search. Okay, so it's showing all the MacBook Pro. For example, if I search for something like Alienware laptop, just for example. Okay, it show the contents, it show the output related to my text. Okay, now they are getting input from the user and processing the user's input. Okay, so not only based on this search box, in this Amazon we can able to create an account, login account, we can able to buy the product, sell the product, and we can able to give the comments, we can able to place the Google location, map location. Okay, so everything, for example, if I saw sign in my Amazon account, means it will be different. If you sign your Amazon account, it will be different, because how the account will be customized based on the user searches. Okay, so this is actually dynamic one, not a static. Okay, but this Anna University is a static means never change, dynamic means it will be changing. So if I'm getting input from the user, that is a web application, and if it is a rest only a page, that is a website. Understand, one is a static and dynamic. So website and web application not differs based on the static or dynamic. If any site will processing the user input, that is a web application, rest it is a website. If any site getting user input and processing over the user input, that is a web application, because application only can able to process the user inputs, no site will process. If the site process, that is application. So for processing the user input, it may be the login or search, anything. Okay, so they are processing, how they process, they build a server, they build a database, and they're fetching the data's information and processing through the informations. So this kind of operation will be done by the web application. So website doesn't need this kind of data. So okay, only they process, only they changes the pages. Okay, if any site will getting and processing user input, that is a web application, rest all website. Okay, and where we can able to find a more vulnerabilities, either from website or a web application. So in general, you can able to find more vulnerabilities in a web application rather than a website. In website, you can able to find some traditional vulnerability. There is a no very less chance for finding a business logic based vulnerability. But in web application, you can able to find the traditional vulnerabilities, business logic based vulnerabilities, either everything. Because whenever the application is processing something, then only you can able to find the mistake. Okay, if it is not process anything, it will be just a static pages, means we can't able to find more vulnerabilities whenever it is processing. For example, you just consider this Amazon is a web application. So what are all the chance of vulnerability? I'm not asking this vulnerability is present or not. Okay, because Amazon is a very secure application. So every most of the endpoints getting user input, so there you can find a cross scripting. And yes, they are using a database because they have to store the user data, product data, so there will be high chance to make a SQL injection. So in SQL injection, you can able to perform both scenario. One is information disclosure or an extracting database, and next one is authentication bypass. Okay, so here they are using a login, so you can check for authentication bypass, like bypassing the login pages using some SQL queries. So that is a chance. And once after login, there is a high chances for you can test for SSRF. Even while login, you can check for CSRF whether the CSRF token is properly implemented or not, and chance for IDR. Okay, even if they are using any XML file, you can go and check with XXC is presented in this application or not. And from injection attack also, there will be a many injection attack, like if there is any possibility for getting if they are using any OS level functionality. For example, if the application processing the user input from the OS level, there is a chance for OS command injection, and generally you can test for the host header injection. Okay, many injections or the types are there, like you can perform everything. You can check for email header injections and IDOR using a privilege mechanism. For example, if you are a normal customer having a less privilege, but you are a person who working in Amazon, you have some more privileges. You can try to get more over a privilege escalation. And account takeover, even in account takeover, that is a multiple chances you can get through the IDOR, authentication bypass, response manipulation. There will be n number of chances are there, and this is a e-commerce site, so you can especially have to focus on a payment gateway. Okay, what are the possibilities to tamper the product prices? Okay, and a list of products. For example, if the product, okay, so I'm showing, so here this laptop is priced up to 1,70,000 Indian rupees. So if it is possible to, is there any possible to change this product price or not? Okay, or else if the product price will be same 1,70,000, but using this price it is possible to add a 10 product in the same price or not. So these are all business logic things. Okay, more vulnerability you can able to find. So now I hope you have a clear idea between what is website and what is a web application. Okay, so in web application, you can find more vulnerabilities either to related to business logic and the traditional vulnerabilities. And so if you want to start a web application penetration testing as well as a bug bounty, if you have a clear idea, so what are all the topics you need to cover? So first, you just consider your target is a web application. So you have to be a clear idea. We had discussed about what is a website and web application. So if you want to start a bug bounty, you should have to be clear with the web application technology. So how the web application is built, what are all the fundamentals of web application. Okay, so in generally web application are built from the scratch using a html, and they use css for the designing, but css for a penetration testing or a bug bounty hunting, it is not so important because css is only used for designing. So then what are the things you need to be have basic idea? You should have to be clear with sql. So I hope you all know about what is SQL. SQL is a structured query language which is used to construct and maintain database of the application. So that is why we are using SQL and PHP. So PHP is a server-side programming language. So PHP only connect your application with a server. So you should have to be very clear with the PHP. So if there is any vulnerabilities in PHP of the application, that may leads to a huge attacks. Either it also leads to a remote code execution, and you should have to be clear understanding of protocols. Okay, what about http protocol? What is https protocol? How the connection is being originated from client to server, how the request is being originated. Okay, so what is request, what is a response, what are all the different types of request, what are all the request methods are there, what is the status code behind the request? For example, if you get a status code of 200, what does the 200 status code refers to? What does the 300 status code refers to? So everything. And finally, you have to be clear with this OWASP top 10. Okay, I hope some people will know what is OWASP top 10. If you don't know, I'll tell you, this OWASP top 10 is a checklist. Okay, so every 4 years, they update the checklist for a testing. For example, if you are testing the vulnerability in a web application and preparing the report, so using this OWASP top 10 checklist, you can able to give the position to the vulnerability. For example, if you find a remote code execution, that will be a high severity. If you find a low level vulnerabilities like a host header injection, that will be not considered as a more higher. Okay, so using this checklist, you can able to find what are all the vulnerabilities are there, what are all the chance of vulnerabilities are presented in the application, and for what, for which vulnerability, for what severity we have to give. So that is based on the OWASP top 10. So alternative for this OWASP top 10, there is a one more checklist which is a SANS 25. Okay, and you have to be a good security knowledge on sql injection, cross scripting, remote code execution, and ssrf. So I like to show you some practically in this session. Okay, after that we can see this with about a bug bounty. We can go this application, we can see everything in a practically. Okay, so just wait. Okay, so I'm logged in as a Kali user, and we can see the authentication bypass using SQL injection manually. So that will help you to learn what is bug bounty actually. Okay, so bug bounty is finding a vulnerability in application, and once you got the vulnerability, you can report to the particular company to make fix the vulnerability. Okay, so here you are playing the role of hacker to secure the proper application or a object. That is actually bug bounty. Okay, so we can take a very traditional and very famous vulnerability, which is SQL injection. So I hope you all know about what is SQL injection. So first of all, SQL, before going to the SQL injection, you have to be a clear idea, clear hands-on about what is actual SQL, what SQL can do. Okay, so without proper knowledge of SQL, we can't able to perform SQL injection. So SQL injection. So first we can see about SQL, structure query language. What is the role of SQL in a web application? SQL is used to construct and maintain database of the application. Okay, how the SQL generally works based on queries. Okay, in the name itself, structure query language. So it's work based on a queries. How the queries will be operated? Queries will be operated to the conditions or a logics. Either it is behind to the logic of true or false. Either it may be true, will proceed. If it is false, it will not proceed. So this is the logic behind the SQL. If you want to Okay, so yes, before going to the explanation, I'll tell you how what are all the possible attacks you can perform through SQL injection. Using SQL injection, you can able to perform two attack scenario. One is authentication bypass, and next one is information disclosure. So what I hope you all know about information disclosure. Information disclosure is nothing but extracting internal data from the database and exposing, that is in information disclosure. And this session we are going to see authentication bypass, how we can bypass the authentication or login method using SQL injection. So before going to the authentication, we can see something about what is SQL and how the authentication is working on. See, here I'm opening the paint and I'm showing you something. Okay, so you just consider this is a user, and because once if you will understand this, you can able to clearly understand what is authentication bypass and how generally the authentication is working on. Okay, and this is a web server and application server and internal database server. Okay, so you just consider this is a user and this is a DNS, web server, application server, and finally database. So this will be presented. For example, you just consider this is a Facebook application. So this is a general user. You just consider this is the Facebook application. Okay, how the login is generally working. So once if you enter your ID password in the Facebook login page, first it will send the request to the DNS server. So DNS server only provides the IP address. Now the browser will get the IP address. Once after getting the Facebook IP address, the browser will send the request to the Facebook web server. Okay, so first the Facebook web server will receive the request, and this web server pass the request to the Facebook internal application server. Okay, so here this application server have to play a vital role because database doesn't know username and password. It doesn't understand the general username and password. This database server only understand the SQL query. Now this application server need to convert the user input into SQL queries, and once after converted the user inputs to SQL query, it have to share the SQL query to the database. So now the database will check whether the login ID is presented or not. If the login ID is presented and this is the right password for the user or not. So once everything will be fine, then this database server will send the pass message to this application server. Okay, it will send yes, this user is authenticated, this user is a genuine. Once after receiving the pass notification from the database server, this application server send the user profile to the web server, and this web server will load the user profile in the browser. This is actually happening in the authentication. So first, if you once again I'm telling you, see here the user is logging Facebook account. First the request will go to the DNS server, and DNS server will provide the Facebook IP address. Through the IP address, okay, the request will send to the web server. So this web server pass the request to the internal application server. This internal application server has to convert the user inputs to SQL query. Why this application server have to convert the user input to SQL query means because database will not directly understand the user ID or password. It only understand the SQL queries. Okay, now once this application server has sent the SQL queries to the database can verify and validate whether the SQL query belongs to true or false. Okay, once after that, if it is a true, it will say yes, it is user is authenticated, and application server will pass the user profile to the web server. If it is the user ID or password is mismatching, a database server will tell them no, this is not authenticated user, and this application server will send the false information to the web server, and web server will not load the user content. Instead of that, it show that it say like the user ID or password is incorrect. This is actually happened in the login, that is in authentication. Here, how the attacker can do authentication bypass means, see now the vital role is played by the application server because this application server has to convert the user input to the SQL queries. But if this application server not properly validating the user input means there is a chance for a SQL injection. If this application server not properly validate the user input, there you can there SQL injection may be occur. Authentication bypass may be occur through SQL injection. So here what this attacker can do is attacker create the SQL query. Okay, attacker has created the own SQL query and send it to the web server. Web server send the same SQL query to the application server. If the application server failed to validate the SQL query, instead of this, it generally send the SQL query to the database. There will be a leads to SQL injection. Okay, so I hope you are clear with the term what is SQL injection, how the authentication bypass is working through SQL injection. So we can see practically. Okay, so here I'm just using the Google Doc. So in URL admin.php. Okay, so we can take some random sites, random application. We can check for authentication bypass. So once after that, probably I hope you all will have a decent idea about what is bug bounty, how you can test, how you can start your career in a bug bounty. S- Okay, so guys, and one more thing, if you want to test any live application, you should have probably check whether the application is hosting any bug bounty program or not, or else you have to check from your own risk. Okay, because here I'm a working security professional, my company will support me, and you have to think about yourself. Okay, so if you are while testing, if you get any government application, you can ignore that one. Okay, so what may be the user ID and password? And one more thing guys, this is not a general login page, this is an admin login page. Okay, what is the difference between a general login and admin login? Is there any special in the admin login? Admin have the full privilege. So for example, once if you have a chance to bypass this admin login, you can able to make any changes because admin have the most privileges. You can able to do any activities as per you want because you are the administrator. So yes, we can start the authentication bypass. See, first before going to the authentication bypass, you have to be and know about clear understanding of the SQL queries and SQL commands. Okay, so here this application is getting two input from the user. One is username, another one is password. So I am writing a very basic SQL statement. Okay, don't ask me this statement will be used in this application or not. This is a general. Okay, so like select anything from username equal to, okay, and password equal to. So these are all the two inputs this application is getting input from the user. One is username, another one is password. Okay, and every time if you are a developer, you are getting input from the user, you should have to get input as a string value only. So why developer will getting user input as a string? Is any developer here? If you have a decent developing knowledge, then it will be very helpful for you to find more bugs because you know the condition of a web application, how the developer will create the web application. So if any user input will be get inside the two single quote or a two double quote, means it will be a string will never get execute. Okay, if it is a different data type, it may get executed once. If the user queries will execute in the server, means that is a very harmful. Okay, no application have to execute the user's query. So that is why developer get user input as a string only, like this. And these single quotes, okay, if you enter any user ID or password, means that will be look like this in a backend. And these two single quote are presented in backend of the application. The first single quote will be presented before the box, and last single quote, second single quote will be presented last of the box. Okay, so here is one and here is one. So if you enter any value, that will be look like this. So I hope you are clear with how they're getting input from the user. And before giving the SQL payload, we have to find something. Okay, we have to learn something, which is SQL. In the name itself, I already tell structure query languages. How the queries will work. Queries are work behind the conditions and logic. Simply it works behind the boolean, whether it is true or false. If it is true, it will work. If it is false, it never work. Okay, so how we can declare true or false in our payload? So before declaring the true or false, you need to understand the two conditions. Okay, two statements. One is a R statement, another one is a AND statement. So what does R refers to? Okay, what does R refers to? R refers to addition. And what does AND refer to? AND refer to the multiplication. Okay, R refers to addition and refers to the multiplication. I hope you all see and learn this in a gates. Okay, AND gate, OR gate, NOR gate, XOR. Okay, so simply R refers to the addition and AND refers to the multiplication. For example, 0 or 0 equal to, just copying this. What does R refers to? R refers to addition. So 0 plus 0, what will be the answer? 0 plus 0, yes, 0 plus 0 plus 1. 0 plus 1, 1. Okay, 1
1.
plus 0, also 1. 1 plus 1, also 1. Okay, it is a 1. Okay, this is our statement. Okay, and we can see the AND statement now. So what does AND refers to? AND refers to the multiplication. Okay, so 0 multiplied by 0. What will be the answer? 0 into 0,
0.
0. 0 into 1, 0. 1 into 0, 0. Okay, 1. Okay, so here 0 refers to false. Okay, so 0 refers to false and 1 refers to, okay, so now see the R condition. Okay, now see the R condition. See if both statement will be false. Okay, so 0 refers to false and 1 refers to true. If both statement is false, okay, output will be false. If both condition will be false, this is our statement. Okay, if both condition will be false, output will be false. One false and one true, output will be true. And first condition is true and next condition is false, means also output is true. If both conditions are true, then also output is true. This is in our statement. So in our statement, either any one of the statement will be true, output will be true. And for an AND statement, if both condition will be false, output will be false. So one false and one true, output will be false, and one true, one false, output also false. If both condition will be true, then only output will be true. For our statements, either if we give one true statement, output will be true. But for our statement, we have to give both true value. Then only the becomes true. For and R, now we can use the same payload here. Okay, so I'm just remove this. These are all just I'm writing for your reference. Okay, so now I'm getting a, now I'm giving the username as a test. Okay, we don't know whether this username is a test or not. It may test, it may or may not be test. So here I'm generally giving the username test. Once after this test, how they are getting input from the user inside the two single quote. Okay, so inside the two single quotes as a string only, they are getting input from the user. So here I manually give one single quote. Okay, so before that I'm telling you these two single quotes are presented like this. Okay, one is before the box and one another is after the box. Okay, so once after the word test, here I'm manually giving one more single quote. See guys, now this single quote is compromised with this single quote. Okay, this single quote is compromised with this single quote. And now what is the username? Only test. This single quote will be considered as the username or not? This single quote will be considered as the username or not? No, no, this single quote will be not considered as the username, because this single quote will be compromised with this single quote. Then it will be closed from here itself. It will not consider this single quote. Okay, here the single quote is open and here the single quote is closed. Now the username is test and we close the string value. Okay, why we need to close the string? Because string is non-executable. Okay, now username is test, so it may or may not be false. Okay, so for here what I'm going to do is I'm going to use R statement. Okay, so R1, see here, this test may be true or false. So first condition is a test. Okay, so first condition is test, it may be true or false. But here what we are giving, here we are giving one. This one refers to true. Either any one of the condition will be true in our statement. What will be the output? See, here there is a two statement. One is test, one statement is test, which is username equal to test. Okay, here one statement. So this statement is refers to username is test. Okay, it may be false or not. You just consider this test is a false also. Okay, you can consider this test is a false. And here we are mentioning one. This one refers to true. Either one condition will be true. What about the output? Output is also true. Okay, so here I'm giving one. See, here there are totally how many single quotes are there? Totally how many single quotes are there? These first and last single quote presented in this application. Okay, these are all presented in the back end of the application. So rest these five single quotes are given by us manually. Okay, now this single quote is compromised with this single quote, and this single quote is compromised with this single quote, and this also. See, the last single quote is presented in back end of the application. We can't able to remove that. So instead of that, what we can give, because we have to compromise this single quote. Once if there is a seven single quote means it will throw the error. We have to compromise or balance the error. How we can do that? We can comment this single quote, because we can't able to remove this one. This one is presented in backend of the application. So instead of that, we can comment. So for example, you can give comment like hyphen hyphen plus or hyphen hyphen space hyphen. So this hyphen hyphen plus hyphen hyphen space hyphen are the commenting methods in SQL. So like if you give any hashtag which comment in a Python, so like same, if you give hyphen hyphen plus or hyphen hyphen space hyphen, that will be a comment in SQL. So once after comment, what all the content presented after comment, that will not get executed, that will be eliminated. Okay, now this single code will be considered or not? No, no, this single quote never will consider, and this is actually the payload we have given. Okay, so first we give the username test and we manually give one single quote. This single quote will close the string. Now username equal to test. Username may be test or may not be test. Okay, we are not 100% sure. It may be a true or false. You consider this username is false also, but now we are using our statement. So for our statement, and we are giving a true value in second one. So either one condition is true, output will be true. And we give the command to eliminate this single quote. So this is the payload we are giving. I'm just copying the same payload. Okay. And even I paste the same payload in the password field also. That is one. And how about the password? Is password is true or false? Also true. Okay, so username also true, password also true. In between the username and password, there will be a one statement which is and. So what will be one and one? If both condition will be true in and statement, what will be the output? True. Okay, so finally if we substitute our payload, that will remains the value true. Okay, so here I'm copying the same payload and I'm just checking with this application. See, now it is getting login and it login as admin. Okay, so if you want to try anything, you can test in your own. So yes, it is not login. Show that username or password is incorrect. See, it doesn't login means it is nothing like it is not vulnerable to SQL injection. We can give some other payloads. This payload is not working with this application either. We can check with some other payloads. So here we can check. Okay, see guys, you can do anything in your own risk. I'm not responsible for all any activities you are giving. Just for example, I'm showing you the um, SQL injection. See, now it's showing sensitive data of the users and Okay, so their email ID and their sensitive information. So who have not submitted the fees. Okay, so I can close everything. Okay, this is not our business to find. Okay, so this is actually a vulnerable. Okay, so these are all the vulnerability present in this application. So probably what this application have to do, they have to protect their application. They have to secure their application properly. If you give the same payload in a Facebook or Instagram or a Twitter, it doesn't work because Facebook, Twitter, Instagram has fixed this vulnerability in 10 years ago. Okay, so this application also need to secure the user data. For example, if the user will enter all the data in the application, that application no need to expose the data. Even if any hacker will hack into the application and expose all the users data, means the application have to take responsible for the data breach because the users will provide the information to the application only. So the application have to properly maintain the users input. So that is the very major thing. So here this application have to need practice. Okay, need some security practice to harden their products. This is actually penetration testing, and if you reported this vulnerability to the particular concern application, that is bug bounty. So here we are not the professional cybersecurity analyst or a dedicated cybersecurity analyst to this application. We are just normal security researcher. We found this application randomly, and we also try some payloads, but surprisingly our payload is working with this application. So you can report this vulnerable to their application. So this is actually SQL injection. And one more thing, finding only SQL injection, it doesn't mean you are a bug bounty hunter or a penetration tester. There are a number of vulnerabilities out there like cross scripting, server side request forgery attack, CSRF, okay, LFI, RFI, parameter tampering, IDOR. Many vulnerabilities are there. Okay, you have to learn something. You have to prove something. Okay, because the patient is very much thing. Even I found the people who join the course and yes, I'm going to start a bug bounty hunting. I'm going to learn bug bounty hunting and I'm going to start bug bounty in after 2 days. It is not easy at all. You have to be some patience. You have to dedicate. You have to be more research on it. Okay, for overnight no one become a security professional. You have to, it takes some time, but once you give a proper research, once you give the proper input, sure you will get the better output in the security field. So that is the thing I faced in my security experience also. So I was a working security professional. I have more than a 4 years of experience in a cyber security, and I was a core penetration tester of network infrastructure and web application and red teaming and malware analyzing reversing. That is my major scope at all. So in my experience, I'm telling, for learning security, you need to get a proper guidance. Okay, you need to learn something about the back end technologies, because once only from the front end you can't able to find anything much more than it. So you have to be clear understood on a back end, how it is processing, how it is working. Even for a web application penetration testing, if you know the back end technology, back end developing of the application, yes, that's fine, but you should also have to be care on application hosting side. Even nowadays most of the developers have the very aware of the security aspect. So this is the thing, you have to be focused on a bug bounties. Oh, I'll tell you some famous bug bounty platforms like HackerOne, Bugcrowd. These are all the very famous and very familiar bug bounty platforms. Even there are also some private bug bounty program also there. Just for example, now we do authentication bypass in admin login. So we can check authentication bypass HackerOne. Okay, so this HackerOne is an open source bug bounty platform, and Bugcrowd, there is a many platforms out there. See, now we can check this authentication bypass, how the peoples will do authentication bypass and how much they are getting rewarded, and from which company they do this authentication bypass and everything. Okay, so here this security researcher had do authentication bypass in this particular application, and yes, so he had found out this authentication bypass in the year of 2018. And you read something. Okay, you can read in depth how they can do this authentication bypass and everything. So bug bounty, over the night no one can able to become a bug bounty hunter. You have to make some patience. Okay, you have to be your consistency. So consistency is a very important. Once, for example, if you search or make a research for a 2 days 3 days, after that you can post all your things, means that will be no use. You have to be work with every day. And I found many people who try to do a bug bounty, okay, for 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, and if they didn't get any bounty or a bug means they will totally ignore the bug bounty. So that is not good. Okay, you have to try. The patience and the consistency make you very much. So that is the very important thing in the bug bounty. So now I hope you all some idea about what is bug bounty, what is the importance of bug bounty, and these are all the myths probably working with bug bounties, like all bug bounties are public. No, okay, some of the bug bounties will be public. If you are a very good bug bounty hunter, many company will find your profile means they give some private bug bounty program. They invite you some private bug bounty platform also based on your efficiency and your skills. Even I also participated in many private bug bounty programs and in many more. Okay, so that is why you have, that is how you can do. And only tech companies are running bug bounty programs, not like that. Every company having their own product. For example, you just consider there is an insurance based company. So even if it is an insurance based company, the customer are the clients. So okay, the clients are the customers. So for example, if there is an insurance based company means what are all the information they get from the customers? So the medical informations. So this insurance company have to be protect the every user data in very secure. So even they are not a tech company, they have to make the product and application very secure from the hackers. So they also host for a bug bounty program. They also do a security assessment. Okay, and most people will think like hosting running a bug bounty is too risky. Not like that. Okay, if the application is providing a bug bounty program, if they are launching the bug bounty program, you can directly go with the application and test as per you want. And next thing, how to become a bug bounty expert. So this is the same thing I have told that earlier. So extreme reconnaissance. So before going with a bug bounty, you have to be clear with your target. So first of all, what is your target? It may be the web application or a mobile application. Even if it is a web application, you just see Amazon also having a web application, Oyo also having web application, Swiggy also having web application, even Facebook also having web application. But not all these four web application are working in the same manner. Each application having a different business logic. Okay, so you have to understand what kind of business logic they are using in their application. So you have to be clear with what kind of business logic they are using, what kind of backend technologies they are using, what kind of frameworks they are using. You have to do extreme reconnaissance. So reconnaissance is nothing but information gathering. You have to get most possible information about your target. That will usually help you to get into bug bounty to find more bugs in the application. And next, scalability, continuity. So for example, if you try for a bug bounty in 1 week, but if you can't able to find any bug means, I found most people will skip the bug bounties and they go with some other domains. That is not good. You have to be patient, you have to test for. Even for me, honestly, I'm saying to find my first valid bug, it takes more than a 6 month. Okay, you have to make your consistency, you have to be a patient, you have to learn many things. Or else if you find any bug and report at the bug means that is not enough. You have to practice every day, day by day, because technology is updating day by day. You have to be updated with the technologies as well.